Yes.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, which is all about driving great culture. So my name is Colin Wilson, and I'm going to be hosting this webinar with this wonderful woman next to me. Her name is Alison Fletcher. So say hello, Alison.
Hi, everybody.
Okay, our webinar is being recorded. So for those who are not on the webinar today, they will get a copy of the recording, but it will be up on our website within 48 hours because our wonderful Emma, who does our marketing, will make sure it's up there. So welcome to our webinar, everyone. And our job today is to educate, I guess, educate you on how to drive a great culture within your business. So we're very, very excited about doing this webinar today. And what we're going to cover is the following. So today's session, we're going to talk about how to build a great culture in your business and some ways that you might find out whether you've got good culture or not good culture in the business. What is HR best practice? And a lot of companies use us because we're an outsourced HR business. They call us when they have a problem, but we like to do the proactive stuff in HR,
We do.
which is led by you, Alison.
Yeah.
And then obviously the value of having some performance conversations, which is really, really important about how you engage your team. So, and at the very end, we really want to open it up to any questions you might have within the webinar. So we have an hour and we're going to give it our best. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Colin Wilson. I'm the director, Managing Director of Key Business Advisors. We founded this 16 years ago. I looked young in that photo compared to what I look like now, but I just love what I do. This business for me is, yes, it's hard work like most business owners out there, but we're very passionate about what we do. And, you know, there's really 4 key areas to our business, and that is around business strategy and growth. So how do we get a business to that next level? People and culture, because we've got great culture in a business. That's all about teamwork and getting everyone on the same page. We're an outsourced HR business. There's a team of 6 HR advisors who support many customers throughout Australia that I'm very grateful for my team, and that's led by you, Alison.
Yeah.
And we do a lot of leadership and sales training. So it diversifies a little bit, but my strong parts are the strategy and the training, and then Alison and her team get involved with the culture, people culture, and the HR advice and support. But there's 12 of us in the business, and it's never a dull day, is it, in this business?
Never boring.
Okay, all right. So Alison, tell us a bit about yourself.
So I've been in HR for over 16 years. I've worked in various industries from automotive industry to healthcare, construction, and the list goes on and on. I changed over to HR. It was always a passion that was in the background. So I was finally in a position where I was lucky enough to be able to do that big shift, the pivot, as was the hot topic word in 2020. And I absolutely love what I do as well. So
yeah, perfect. Okay, good. And you do a great job at it.
Thank you.
Now, I always start off with our mission, and our mission, if you want to build business, it's all about your mission, your purpose, your values, all the above. So our mission is to take business from good to great. So where are you today? How do we get you to that next level? And that consists of those 4 key pillars that we spoke about. And our purpose is to take our customers on a journey through all aspects of employee engagement and performance, because we know that if we can do that, then they have great outcomes. We try and live by that 100%, and I think we do a very good job of it. And again, you know, they're the 4 pillars that we work on, and that's enough about plugging us for the moment. Now about you. Here we go. So topic 1 is about how to build a great culture in your business. So I'm just going to take you through a couple of, actually, maybe you can take us through this slide, Alison.
Okay, so to us, it's staff engagement,
yep.
Right? So the more aligned your team is, the more productive they'll be. If the team are not on the same page, then you're going to get lots of niggles, and that just then breeds more discontentment across the business. Engagement is having everyone on the same page and being fully committed. And everyone should want to work collaboratively and more cohesively together, take ownership and responsibility to help achieve the company's goals and objectives. And I think that's a really good one, that one, because a lot of business owners don't always want to share that information. You can share top end stuff rather than going into the finer details. Having good synergy and communication, and having and this is also really, really valid, and we see this all the time, is everyone is a different personality. So everyone needs to be able to work with different personalities, no different than the schoolyard. So you have to have that professionalism, and then once everyone's understanding of different personalities, then they'll be able to work better with those other team members that they may not necessarily understand as well as others. And there's an acronym here is team together, everyone achieves more as well. Which
a lot of people know about.
Yeah.
But, we've seen it time and time again, and we actually talked about this in our meeting this morning, that we have some clients that have got HR issues and staff issues, and it really comes back to the communication.
Yeah.
And we talked about one particular client who has followed, if I can say, the KBA way of what we recommend. They've done a strategic plan. They set their goals for 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, 2 years. And it's 2 years on. And, the case study I gave this morning was, that company has grown immensely. So same amount of staff, more revenue, more profits, more turnover, and they're doing things. And there's been staff turnover, but, we did get rid of a bit of the bad culture that's in that business, but it is a well-oiled machine now. So I think, having that, this is our strategy, this is where we're going, and this is what we're achieving. And making sure that you're having those milestone moments with your team along the way. So, in this particular company, they wanted to, expand and do things, and it didn't happen in, on the schedule of when they wanted it, but they said it's going to happen in the next 6 months, and they executed it. And that kept, if I can say it, that kept the team going and the momentum going, I think, which I think is really, really important. Now, we're part of an organisation called the HR Coach Institute, and I'm really big on the fact that, one of the things they talk about is this planning. So we talked about having a strategic plan, and one of the things that we do within those strategic plans is we talk about, organisational measurement and planning. So you'd be surprised of how many companies we go into, and they don't have the simple things like an organisational chart of who's who in the zoo and what their roles and responsibilities are. So, we've just picked up a new client, and, this client, there's no position descriptions, right? So it's a scenario where the business is running, it's running very, very well, but it's living in a bit of a vicious circle, if I can say that.
People are lost.
People are lost, that's true. So you need to have some of that planning in place, all right? So what is the staff we need? What does it look like? How are we going to grow? How are we going to get to the next level? And I'm just using what I would do in my strategic plan, the people section. People, how are we going to work with our people and capability? You need to have some form of HR process and systems in place. And we recommend, you get a HRIS system that collects all the information, because record keeping is a big thing. And I'll talk about that a bit later. And then you've got to have governance and compliance. So again, if you're not paying staff correctly, then, that could create some friction within your business. And, we've seen a lot of people saying, look, well, I should get a pay increase. I don't think that I'm being paid fairly. And we've done a few payroll audits, and they have been paid fairly. It's a case of, the staff members wanting more and pushing the actual owner for more. Now, again, if you've got great culture in a business and the business is achieving its goals and you're making good profit, you will pay more. But if it's not, then, okay, we need to put some things in place. And as you see over there on the right-hand side of your screen, all this will minimise your risk. What maximises or will increase your sustainability is those performance discussions. And we'll finish off on that when we do the end of this webinar. But again, it's just about letting staff know how they're performing. Are they performing well? If they're not, what do I need to do to change? And, we had a meeting this morning with a client, and we talked about millennials. Well, spit it out, Colin. And one of the things we spoke about is how do we empower them even more? And they want to know, am I performing well? Am I going in the right direction? So again, you need to put a bit more time into them. And those things that, that I really love to do is those workplace improvements, where we do things like training, so, whether it be customer service training, whether it be sales training, whether it be, leadership training, and even like, your emerging future leaders, what training are you putting in place to build that? So part of your organisational measurement planning is also looking at your succession plan as well. So if someone was to move on, do we have somebody ready to step up and take the plate? So I think that's a big part of getting yourself organised. And one of the things that we do is engagement surveys, and it just seems to be a massive flavour at the moment, being the start, start of 2024. But as it shows you on this diagram, is businesses have high strategy or they have low strategy. They have high action activity or low action activity. If I've got low action activity and high strategy, I could be a startup business. And there are times where what's the word? Where we look at and go, well, I'm starting another. I've got an existing business, but I'm going to go and create another pathway, another income stream. So that could be part of a startup. If it's low action activity, low strategy, then we're in trouble. We could be exiting the market.
Yeah.
And typically we see this in second, third generation businesses who don't have a strategy or strategic plan of where they're actually going. So they never founded the business. So they've, no disrespect, but they haven't gone through that hardship of the ups and downs of the roller coaster ride of what actually happens. So I hope I'm making a bit of sense here. If I've got high strategy, high action activity, where everything is linked, then I should have an employer and staff satisfaction survey of 75% plus. If it's in the yellow, it could be a department or a management issue. And if it's red, it means I've got a lot of activity going in my business, but the strategy that I have, no one understands or no one's following it. And therefore we're living in a vicious circle. And stats are that 48% of SMEs in Australia, based on over 3,000 of these surveys that have been done, live in that space. So that's pretty dangerous, the way I see it, but it's good for us because that's what we do. We go in and help businesses. So you can see where the benchmark is. Now, when anyone does any work with me, I'm all about making sure that you've got your business in the green. So we put that in with HR best practice. We make sure that we got our staff happy, we've got good strategy. And I think what should happen is your results that you want to be is well over the 80% mark. And if you're in that 80 to 85%, you got to think that the owner and the team come to work every day, 80% happy in how the business is performing. So there's a few people out there, and feel free to put some things in the chat to make sure you're following what I'm saying here. But, if you were to do a survey right now, where do you reckon your team might score you as a business? Would you be in the green? Would you be in the yellow? Or would you be in the red? So feel free to put some of that in the chat so I know that you're actually listening and understanding what we're doing. So if you think about it, this is how it works, right? So have you ever thought about doing a survey, a staff survey, and what would it look like if you actually did do that? And, we have one particular client, love them dearly, right? And if I can say they've lost a bit of love for their business and they don't want to do something like this because they know that they've lost a bit of that passion. So I've got a great question from here. Are those scores based on a rating scale of unhappy to happy? Yes, 100% there, Greg. So if I've got somebody that's come in at, 50%, and it could be a thing around, because the way when we do these employer and staff satisfaction surveys, the most common things that we hear is knowing how the future direction of the business is going, lack of feedback, of recognition, lack of training. So again, it gives you really good insight. So the higher the score, the better, right? So if you're in the 90s, and we've had some clients that are in the 90s, they're just an amazing job and a well-oiled machine. So that concludes our little first section about, just getting that engagement and trying to find out. And I'm all about, if anyone has done any work with me, it is all about filling up a bucket of information. So if I find out how my staff are feeling, I put a temperature gauge into the team, then I know some of the things that I need to do to fix it. And again, as I said, 2024 is I've said in previous webinars, is a new year, and we just seem to be getting a lot of companies that want to do these engagement surveys because they want to improve, and more importantly, they want to retain their staff and they want to work out ways to find new staff. So if anyone's got any questions on that, feel free to reach out. Okay, so I hope I answered your question there, Greg, and you can let me know with a thumbs up or a note. Okay, so topic 2, and this is obviously a really hot topic because I think there's like 47 people registered, almost 50 people for this webinar, and I think it's great because we're a small business and just absolutely this is what we believe in and stand for. Okay, beautiful. So let me commence off, and maybe I'll get you to go through Alison, what is HR best practice? So if I get you to go through this.
Yep. So yeah, there's a difference between best practice and legislative compliance. So best practice, the way we like to say it to our clients is that's what you would do if you want to become an employer of choice.
Correct. Yep.
So there's a lot of things that you can improve on that are not necessarily legislative requirements. So you can have really good processes and procedures with regards to your recruitment. Induction is another big area where we find a lot of businesses are lacking. A really good induction would help minimise losing an employee that you've just spent a lot of time, effort and money in engaging. Compliance with your contracts and you know, it does make sure you still have to do the compliance side with contracts, NES, rostering and payroll, etc. Employee engagement, performance and conduct, policies, procedures, processes. As I've said, training and development is another huge one that also helps to minimise your staff retention figures going down. Termination, what is correct, what process do you have to follow to terminate an employee and what type of termination. Record keeping is huge, and making sure that you follow your due diligence as well.
Yeah, and I think, look, this is a big thing. And a lot of people, I quote Lorraine, my wife, right? We have a dog groomer that's across the road, and when people come in and they ask a bit about our business, one of the things she says, "Well, see that dog groomer across the business? They know across the road. They know how to groom a dog. They really do. But are they good administrators? Do they understand HR? And that's where we fit in. We're a small business helping other small businesses improve their HR because they can't afford to go and get a full-time or even a part-time HR person for their business. But one of the some of the outcomes or the benefits is, it helps. It's used as a guideline to create streamlining processes. So this is the way that we do things, and it adds value to your overall business, in my opinion. But I think a big one for me is it establishes performance expectations. So when we've got HR best practice, here is your, we talked about before, here's our organizational chart, here is our position descriptions, this is defined of what we want you to do with your KPIs. So everyone sets those expectations. It's also been a bit planned and organised. So I just want to put it out there that I give myself 10 out of 10, Lorraine and I, because we started a new person today in our business, and he's fronted up with a computer, logins, business cards, mobile phone, everything's done, right? And with a 3-week induction plan that's laid out of what he's going to do for the next 3 weeks based on each day and who he's going to sit with to actually learn the ropes of our business. So, that's what we talk about, having that best practice in there. So it's all about setting up, business activities for continuous improvement. And I think, again, when we've talk about, strategy, and we bring in, some of our process, like what are some of the milestone moments that we've achieved within this business? If we're growing as a business, how do we link that back to performance conversations, recognition and praise, and let people know how we're actually going? Because all of this supports the engagement of staff in your workplace. It'll improve the overall performance of your business and will minimise that risk and maximise the sustainability, which is that slide I showed you before. But, again, it's supporting managers to do the right thing. And, that's one of my, if I can say, one of the biggest pet hates that I have is we go into a company and, this goes back to personalities, and you got 4 managers all managing differently. No one's on the same page. No consistency, and that creates departmental breakdown and lack of, if I can say, lack of commitment to the business. So again, if we've got all that right, it contributes to the culture of business, and again, it prevents those future claims that come in. And I think that's the scary part now, is people look at HR and go, I need HR because I might get a claim. Yeah. Rather than flip it on its head, I need HR to support my business to go to that next level. So I don't have it. I always say, if you've got lots of activity and drive, and this is where you're going in your business or in your franchise or whatever it may be, then all that noise goes away. But, I once said to somebody, if you don't have this structure in your business, think about a classroom with 10-year-olds and the teacher leaves the classroom, what would happen after, 10 minutes, 20 minutes or an hour? It's mayhem, right? And we actually see that in businesses, personalities take over, and this is how it is. So 16 years we've been in our business, and this is a download off our website. This is what we call HR best practice. This is what we actually do. And, you know, Alison, I'm very big on, and I'm about to go and do this. I'm about to go and fly to Mildura and just do a session with some clients on personality profiling. And we're just going to work on mission, vision, purpose, and values. Because for me, that is what it's all about, because that's the holy grail. It brings everyone back to why we do what we actually do. And then again, we talk about our organisational charts, our position descriptions that are set up with KPIs, which are key performance indicators. And then we do our, you know, I call it the pre-employment due diligence. So this is not recruitment, you know, recruitment's separate from this, but this is about, you know, when we employ somebody, we do our due diligence, our reference checks, we make sure our contracts are right, and we just make sure that everything is clear. So when they come to our business, we're 100% clear of what they're going to do, and they're 100% clear as well. And I think that's really, really important. And again, we've seen it where a staff member started in a business and what they thought they were walking into to what they got was two different things. Now, that's a very costly exercise for a business that doesn't have all their action or their what I call their act together in relation to having this, what we call HR best practice. Your employment contracts. So again, the amount of times, Alison, we see someone's copied an employment contract from a mate.
Yes.
Right. And we had one in particular, one client where they've copied it from a friend and they employed over 15 people.
Yep.
Right. And these guys employed under 15 people. So in a redundancy, you don't have to do a payout, but because it was in the contract, these guys had to pay this person out 13 weeks. So again, it's about getting that due diligence and knowing what you need to do.
Yeah, there's also that issue of if you're copying something, you don't know if it's up to date with legislation.
Correct. Yeah. And from the payroll and rostering side of things, now, again, Alison, you do a lot of work in this space.
Yeah.
What are some things that you've seen that's
a lot of companies who have staff on salary and they think that what they've placed the employee's salary base to be, they believe that is covered. And this goes back to 2020, 2021, when there was a lot of businesses across the country that Fair Work were pulling up because there was a lot of managers that were being short paid. There is a danger there to just place someone on a certain rate, but not do your due diligence and find out for certain that that would cover all of their entitlements. The other thing would be to make sure that information is actually in the contract, because if it's not in the contract, and even though you pay them that amount, you could potentially have to pay them more on top of, because it's not being clearly defined in the contract as well. So
yeah, and it can be a bit of a minefield, you know. So, and especially around permanent part-times, where the if I can say, you're a permanent part-time, but permanent part-time is you work these days and these hours.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if you're a variety of hours, it'd be a casual. But we just see mistakes being made, and you know, I always say that when someone gets pissed off, if they go to Fair Work, and they can go to Fair Work and ask some questions, what you don't, or go to a lawyer, and you see lawyers that are always advertising, have you been unfairly paid or whatever, you just got to make sure you got that due diligence right. I think what's important too is that legislative and company policies, but we've had new legislation come through, positive duty, making sure we're working with, I've got a process in with the NES, with which we'll talk about shortly, around domestic violence. So all these things that we as business owners are expected to know. So, and commonly, small business comes to us and go, am I expected to know this? And the answer is yes. You pay a staff member, you pay the ATO, you pay payroll tax, or you pay, the payroll tax proportion. You're expected to know all this. But we want to put this into a positive light, because we've got to think about, like, doing, our performance reviews is seen as a positive, and a counselling session, like there are times where, we've got to have a conversation with a staff member, and if I use the word kick them up the bum a little bit, right? And there's been many times where, we've done that with companies and even with our own business, and a person said, thank you, I really needed that, get me back on track. So it's not about becoming really, really tough. It's just becoming, I'll link it back to what the business actually needs. And, I think what's really important is, you made that comment before about understanding the termination process and what you need to do. But the amount of time somebody rings us and says, I've just terminated this person and now this has happened, they're putting in an unfair dismissal claim or a general protections claim, am I in trouble? And then when we backtrack it, the simple things that they could have done and should have done, they haven't done. And again, that's why we have a 1300 for advice number. Ring us and we'll guide you through what you actually need to do. And then again, having that solid HR best practice, HRIS in place. And that's where that record keeping is just so valuable and important, because if you don't have record keeping and something goes wrong, your employee will always win over the employer. And we see that time and time again. Okay, Alison. So let's take us through this part, our mission, vision, purpose, and values.
So just to break it down, a mission is what does your business stand for? Vision would be what are you trying to achieve as a cohesive team within the business? Purpose, that's your why, and why do you do what you do? Values, these create the collaboration and motivation amongst the team so that your staff live and breathe them throughout their day-to-day operations as well.
Yep, and when we do an offsite, we take our team away every quarter. We'll go through this again, time and time again. And if you go to the toilets and close the door, our values are on the back of the toilet so people don't forget. But that is all about living and breathing. And when clients come and work with us, all these mission, vision, purpose, and they're plastered all over our business. And I'm working with a great business at the moment. They're absolutely going extremely well, and they're putting that up on a wall. They're getting it painted into the wall of what that. Yes, yeah, because they just understand. This is the culture that we want to live by and breathe by with our team. And I talk about, you'd be surprised how many clients we go and see and look at their PDs. But it's important for us to put this into the position description of you need to follow our mission, vision, and values, because if you don't, then you're underperforming.
We do like to put them in the PDs. Yeah.
Okay, so our organisational chart, Al.
So chart, obviously it's going to be a diagram that shows the internal structure of the business, and it will detail the responsibility and the leadership of different people, what the pathway is between all the different departments, different levels. It's really good. I actually like using this for career pathways and skills mapping as well. So if you've got a really good chart, then it's very clear to everyone in the business who they need to report to, who else is, it just goes on. So there's lots of benefits to it. And it helps minimize the uncertainty of who's who in the zoo, as you said earlier as well.
Look, I'm doing a strategic session with a company, and what we're looking at is how many staff they would like in 2 years' time to fill these roles. And, so the org chart will have vacant written on it, which means that when staff in the business can see, they can see, I might want to move across to this side of the actual business. Okay, so I'm going to talk to you about position descriptions, and a lot of people go, well, what happens with PDs is they get put in, they get done, and then they get never seen again. But this is all about, it gives that guidance to everyone of what your roles and responsibilities are. And as you can see in this one here, we've got an example. We look after Australian Funeral Directors Association, so they're a great organisation we work with. And we talk about our mission, our value, our vision, our mission, values, and purpose. It's in the start of the PD there. But the big one for me is about getting it right with your key performance indicators. So those KPIs, and we don't want to overdo it, right? And then our key result areas, which is the KRAs, of what you've got to do to actually achieve the KPIs. And in today's world, those WH requirements are just so important to make sure that you are following a best practice format. So even though we're a HR business, we do cross over into the WHS space, not on machinery, but on the behavioural side of things. That's how it works. And then it's about doing our pre-employment due diligence as well. So again, we train this. We run a management training program, which is about being an effective manager. But the amount of times that companies come to us and they have a problem with the staff member they've put on, and it's always the day after their probationary period finishes.
Always,
right? And I asked them, were they good at the start? And they would say, well, no, but we needed them and we had to run the business. And I said, okay, that's fine. And I said, but did you do reference checks? Did you do a proper recruitment process? So, again, your recruitment plan is everything. So what is your recruitment plan? Do that pre-employment due diligence. And what we coach is, do a phone screen, have a face-to-face interview, whether it be or a Zoom or Teams, that introduction, and then do a second interview with that particular person. And to me, the second interview is about that real good culture fit,
Yeah.
you know, show them some of the systems you
gonna fit in?
use, are
Yeah.
they going to fit in? But the first interview is around poker face. Do they have the skills and capability to come and do the job that we're looking for?
Yeah.
But you need to be clear on what role you want them to do. So again, you can't go and do recruitment and then change the role halfway through the recruitment process. And we've seen a bit of that. So you make sure you do your reference checks and those onboarding documents and that orientation and induction process. And if I can give you a tip, because I'm very grateful for the amount of people that are on the webinar, that have signed up for this webinar, but you'll see here that you can do things like Seek, you know, you put a job out on Seek, you pump it out on your LinkedIn, your Facebook, job pages, you know, all the things that you can do, Instagram. But you'll notice I've got a thing there called an open day, and this has been a big flavour for us, where we've encouraged our customers to have an open day and showcase the business to potential employees, and explain a bit about the history, how it works, what we've done, and what we're looking for it. And if you like our brand, then why don't you put an application in? Why don't you give us your resume and we'll interview you? And it's just been, we've found a huge success for that, in particular in getting the millennials into the workplace. That's right?
Yeah, they came back last year, didn't it?
Yeah, and you know, one client we did it during COVID because I was so desperate. I think we had 11 people on a Saturday was when we did it for them, because it's a retail business. But the last one we had like 60 odd people come through. So and I've got to say the market is changing, because we've just advertised for a HR professional to come and join us, and I'm excited because it's been a long, you know, 12 months ago when we advertised, we had like 11 people apply. But this time we advertised, we had 41 people apply, which for me shows that they're starting to become a bit of an employer's choice now.
Thank goodness.
Yeah. And we need it.
Yeah.
Okay, you can take us through the employment contracts and agreements, because that's your baby, yeah?
Okay, so obviously to be planned and organised for successful employment, you need to set those expectations. So make sure you've got a really good employment contract. Are they full-time, part-time, casual? Are they permanent? Are they fixed term? Are they maximum term? There's all these different types of employment. Make sure that the role is defined and refer back to the position description. Make sure that's really clear and concise as well. Do you know the award that is relevant for that role and your business, and the classification as well? So it's really important, if you are award based, to make sure that you have identified the correct classification for that particular role. Are you EBA, and is that up to date? National employment standards, have a really good understanding of what they cover, because they cover majority of employees right across the country. Individual flexibility agreements. So this is, you can have an agreement, and this is for part-timers in particular, more so, not just, but more so. So it can help give some flexibility around the days and times that they work.
So we don't have to pay them overtime. Is that right? Yeah, in many ways. Yeah.
In many ways, not always. So be careful of that. But then obviously you have to make sure that the calculations have been done. Ordinary hours of work and rostering, are they shift workers or are they not? And this is important to have a good understanding, because shift workers get more leave entitlements. Do you have rostered days on and off, time in lieu, things like that? Do you understand the rest periods? Are they paid? Are they not paid? Meal breaks, etc., etc. What is the probation period, which is different to the minimum employment period, and everybody gets confused about that, and how to terminate as well.
I think also too is, you know, a big part is when someone starts is you go through their employment contract and you ask them, do you have any questions? And as employers, you should know what's in that contract. And a 2-page employment contract is not a good contract. I can assure you of that. So yeah, and Alison just spoke about understanding the award. Now, I've got up here the Funeral Industry Award 2020. That's the most current award. And I think it's 54 pages if you have the time, you want to read an award from cover to cover. And this is where it comes back to, you know, if I can say it, what you're good at, stick to what you're good at. So if you don't understand some of the terminology of all of this, this is where our professionals live and breathe this stuff, and can explain it in simple terms, and also can explain it to your staff in simple terms. And I think that's our point of difference is, you know, when we do this type of work, when staff have got questions, I think it's good coming from a HR professional
Yeah.
or somebody who understands it.
Because it's a legal document.
It is a legal document.
It's quite heavy with legal terminology.
And there's things like classifications, casual employees, and all the above. And we just, again, our job, and we talk about, that employee engagement, get that business to the next level. We don't want noise. Try and minimise the noise. And our minimum employment standards, again, like, as an employer, you must give these documents to your staff to say that you understand it, you acknowledge it. And we always say, get sign off that you've actually provided that document, because, Fair Work could come and audit your business and want to know, have you given them these statements? So you want that proof that it's actually been done.
Same with the casual conversion.
Correct. Yeah.
Information sheet as well.
Yep. And you need to understand, like, it used to be the minimum 10 employment standards, now 11 because of domestic violence. But, you need to understand how this speaks English, if I could say that to you again. And I always say a thorough induction. A person's made a decision. Hey, I've come to the right place. This is a great employer. They're all over this. It's professional. So our payroll and rostering, Alison, do you want to take us through this, please?
So yeah, sure. Being planned and organised with your payroll and rostering is ideal for any business. Obviously, you don't want to have disgruntled employees and paying them wrong and not having enough money to pay them. It does take time and resourcing, and it can cost you a lot of money, especially if it's done wrong. And what we mean by that is if you have short paid someone and they go to Fair Work could potentially then ask to do an audit of your business, and you may not necessarily have to repay that one person. You could potentially have to repay multiple employees up to 5 years. So that's where it could be quite a significant amount of money. It can also obviously damage and disengage the employee relationships, let alone the reputation of the business as well. That's the last thing you want. You don't want to become George Combaris. Employees can share what they're being paid with other colleagues, but not even just within the business. They can share that information outside of the business as well. So make sure you don't have any pay secrecy clauses in your contracts anymore. Any contracts that you may have right now that have that, that's okay. Fair Work have just said that particular clause is now null and void. So, but obviously it would be better to update your contracts to make sure that that's been removed. Make sure you've got the correct award pay rates. The correct award classification will help with that as well. Do you have to pay penalties, loadings, etc., etc.? Are you complying with the rostering rules? The general retail award is a really good example with that. Do you have an understanding of annualised salaries? And there's been a lot of backwards and forwards on confusion with this. It's only relevant for full-time employees who are on a salary, not if they're paid at the wage rate. And what are the superannuation rules as well? So make sure you have a really good understanding of all these things.
And look, best practice is I know I've got it right, and I know that we're paying right, and I'm an employer of choice. That's it. And also I'll talk about the stress of running a business is not easy. So, again, if you know that you got everything in this right, then you feel sound, if I can say that, and know that you're doing the right thing. And I think that's really, really important. From a mental health point of view, as a business owner running a business, I've got peace of mind. I'm paying my team right. I'm doing the right thing. And look, you know what? I'm the part of the strategy stuff. We have a target we've got to follow. If we're hitting the target, or exceeding the target, then you need to reward your employees. Why wouldn't you do that?
Yeah, but don't just set and forget either. Do an audit every 12 months because the rates will change as well.
So our legislative company policies, Al, so I'm going to let you continue on with this.
Thank you. So part of the risk management, it's important to have clear policies in place with your business and having them updated. So make sure that they've been updated. And we've mentioned quite a few times domestic family violence. You should have a policy with regards to that, and that's just one example. You can always improve the way your customers and staff with your business as part of this. Policies will set the standards and the framework for all staff to work towards. They 100% protect your business in so many ways. We quite often have clients come to us and say that they want to terminate someone for XYZ. They have no contracts, or they do and they're minimal, but then there's no policies in place. And our argument is, well, how are you going to measure them and what are you measuring them against? Because there's no guideline to follow as well. So, and in the event that there is poor performance or misconduct, or a situation that's not acceptable, you can always refer back to the policies as well. And that's something that we always do. We say, well, were you provided with this particular policy? Do you agree that clause XYZ says this? And do you agree that you are in breach of this policy? So it just gives that extra depth of security for the business owners and protection for the business as well.
100%. And again, I think, you know, how many times do we see like we've got the policy, but we've never not rolled it out, or we haven't got a signature on that.
Yeah.
And again, what's the point of having a policy if you don't roll them out? So here's some examples of some policies, you know, work health and safety, you know, the employment, equal employment opportunity, you know, the sexual harassment. Like you can see some of these policies, whistleblower bullying, all the above. You've got something that you can actually refer back to in the event, unlikely event, I'll say unlikely event that something happens. But again, it's just so important to do this due diligence. I would say wages are, you know, one of your biggest expense, if not your biggest expense in the business. So you need to make sure you get this due diligence 100% right. And the effectiveness of a policy, it limits your liability, it'll protect your business. It sets those clear expectations around behaviours and what you're expected. It holds employees to expected standards, and it avoids those disgruntled employees. Yeah. And you know, we see it that, you know, if you're not acting upon, you know, poor behaviour within the business, you'll lose your good staff, and the poor performers will stay. So it's not about that. It's about making sure you have that professionalism, that best practice. And you know, we always say our mantra is, if it was never, what was it?
It's not written down, it didn't happen.
If it's not written down, it didn't happen, right? So I never got that email excuse. We just want to make sure, because all of this saves times and minimises your risk. So can you just take us through a bit about the difference between mandatory and best practice, Alison?
So mandatory is set by law, either directly or indirectly. It could be state or federal, and then it's the minimum legal rights and responsibilities of both the employee and the employer. So it's really good to have a good understanding of IR within your business. Best practice would be how to minimise the liability or minimise the risk to the business as well. It also increases the expectational levels of non-tolerated behaviours in the workplace. It gives a really good guideline for employees to follow. It deters inappropriate behaviours because it's quite clear to them what they can and cannot do, and the consequences as well of what will happen if they don't behave appropriately. It'll help minimise any illegal behaviour, especially in certain industries. You might want to have a 0% alcohol and or drug policy, especially if someone's working on machinery. That's just an example, and it helps to provide really good standards of work for the employees to follow as well.
Yeah, and just to let you know, the type of stuff that we go through. So it was New Year's Day, the day after New Year's Day, I get a phone call. So we're shut down, but they've got a person in a business on a forklift that they believed was under the influence of drugs. And the staff complained like he's not the normal self. He looks like he's high as a kite. And, you know, how do you get someone to do a drug test, you know, on the day after where everyone's on holidays? But they had the policy, and it's in the policy that it can be done at any time.
Yep.
And the person was positive and was, you know, terminated immediately, because that just puts so much risk to everyone's health and safety of someone driving a forklift. So again, if something went wrong, and you know, in the event that someone was killed, you know, the penalties are huge for a business owner. So again, it is all about behaviour and best practice again. So, and that client's been with us for 15 years. So I'm very, very grateful for that client. And if they're on, they know exactly who I'm talking about. So yeah, and our procedures are.
So procedures are how the company does things. So it could be a step-by-step document that you've got, and it records information on that particular product or service that you provide. You might have different procedures amongst the different departments within the business, and it's how to conduct and run that process. So again, as I said, step-by-step process. It should also outline who is involved as part of that process. It's pretty much a Bible. What happens if someone is unfortunately away from work for a lengthy period of time? Someone else should be able to pick up where they've left off and follow the procedure. I mean, that's pretty much what it's about. So it should have everything in there that will enable somebody else to be able to follow that process. It also shows and tells the existing staff what to do, especially if that's a new procedure for them to follow. And we do like these as well because it's not too dissimilar to the position descriptions. If somebody is not following a procedure and they've done something that's cost the business money, for example, they've manufactured something, it's cost you 20,000, you can actually pull them up on not following the company procedure as well. So it's really important to have.
Yeah, and again, Alison, I could give you 100 stories that where people don't follow procedures, and it's fairly easy to talk about their performance. We put a performance improvement plan in place, a PIP, and we get it done. Speaking of performance, here we go. Oh, go on, good stuff.
Okay. That's right. So obviously, we do like to have these aligned back to the company's mission, vision, purpose, and values. We absolutely, we always implement this within our own business, and we wave the flag and get our clients to this as well, because we live and breathe all of these things. Because if your staff live and breathe them as well, then they're more likely to be a better cultural fit for the business as well. So they're aligned to the position description, so make sure that they're up to date as well. So and that also then makes sure that the engagement levels are high as well. You can identify the areas of achievement that is, a lot of people think performance reviews are negative. Don't make it a negative. I mean, they don't have to be. So you can actually make sure that you've highlighted all the areas where that particular employee has done really, really well, and make sure that you've acknowledged what it is that they've done. And because everybody likes to have a thank you, don't they? But you can also have that opportunity to say, you've done really well in these areas. However, we would still like to see some improvement in this particular area, but then you can go into further details on how you can help that employee to help get them to the developmental level that you want them to be. Create clear and concise communication so that they are understanding of your expectations and they agree to that as well. That's really important. And it will also help the financial side of the business, because happy employees are productive employees. And then if they also know what they're doing, then there's less opportunity for reworks, and they get the work done correctly in a short amount of time. You've got happy customers. The business process is working well, and you've got really good teamwork that goes with that as well.
And I think even like, when people are working from home, like, because there's a bit of that happening, you still got to have these conversations with them. I think it's really, really important. And we've seen the better the process, the better the uptake. And one of the things that we coach is at the 3-month mark, we ask an employee, how do we go on onboarding you into the business? What have we done well? What could we do as a business to improve for the next person? And again, you can get some real valuable information by doing that. And again, what we talk about is, the performance role, just make sure it's linked to your position description, because if it's not linked, then, and again, that just creates total confusion. So, and we've seen it where there's been role changes, hasn't been an updated PD. They want to do a performance appraisal on the person, and what do you,
how do you measure?
How do you measure it? Yeah, I think it's really important. Yeah. So those discussions, it helps with the following. It creates a clear pathway for succession planning. It also helps motivate your staff to improve. If you're not improving, then you put a performance improvement plan in place, and we've done that. And the person said, I needed this to get myself organised. And again, we're about, don't make the thing a thesis. Here's 3 areas that you really need to improve on. How do you think you can do that? That good old recognition and praise, again, I think is really, really important, but don't praise a person for coming to work. Make sure, and don't laugh, because that happens, right?
Laugh because we hear it all the time.
Yeah. Make sure that they're going above and beyond. And what does above and beyond look like? What does doing your job look like? And what does below standards look like in your business? That needs to be clear to all of your team members. You identify those training and development opportunities, ways you can, staff can take more ownership. And then that teamwork and culture outcomes. You know, if you've got a great culture, you've got a great business. So everyone's just got to be aligned with what you're trying to achieve. And Google reviews, in my opinion, is a big way of doing it. And referral and repeat business, I think, is really, really important. What's also important is when you get what I call a boomerang. And I take this from one of my clients who said that, is when you have a staff member who's been great for your business and they've left because they want to pursue other things and then they want to come back. I think that's called a boomerang. I think that is a good sign that you're a great business if people want to come back.
We have a boomerang.
We have a boomerang, yes.
Indeed.
She starts on the 3rd of April, and I can't wait. Yeah. So, and again, you know, that performance cancelling stuff, and there's a bit of, you know, writing that's there, but, you know, what is important is how do you try and minimise those things, 4 things that are down below, and that is those work cover claims, and they're on the up now, like more so than ever before.
More than Fair Work.
Yeah, unfair dismissals, you know, the adverse action claim and that general protections claim that, you know, are keeping what I say the lawyers, it keeps the lawyers in business. So again, it's just so important that you get that right. And if you're not comfortable in this area, do not try and battle it yourself. Go and get professional advice. If you don't want to use us, that's fine. Go and find somebody that knows what they're doing, because it could save you an absolute fortune. You know, when we talk about the different types of warnings, you got informal and verbal warnings. I'm not a fan of that because if it ain't written down, it didn't happen. But you can do some note taking again. We encourage that. But that written warning, that final written warning, that first and final written warning, again, there's a process for that. If you don't know how to do that, you should learn how to do that if you're paying a wage.
And the punishment needs to marry up to...
It's got to be justified.
Right, exactly. So, you know, there's no point going a first and final. If someone's late 3 days in a row, I mean, that's quite excessive. So it does need to match whatever the concerns are. A lot of people, and I'm still shocked that I have to say this, that still believe that there's 3 strikes, you're out. There's no such thing.
It's based on the severity of what it actually is, but it's got to be fair. You know, that's where Fair Work comes in. And this termination process, I think is, you know, like sometimes, you know, we've got to face facts that the people are going to leave, right? And it breaks my heart when we lose staff that we really love and been a great part of our business. But I need to understand as an owner, and so do you, that people will move on, right? But, you know, if you've got really good business and really high standards, and things don't work out for them, they will come. They do want to come back. Yes, I can see the. How do you know when to give a warning? Well, that goes back to are they meeting the right criteria of the job role? Right. So you know, if they're running late at times to the business, you know, do you allow that to happen?
Well, are they late on a regular basis? Is it a one-off, or are they late 3 days every week? And they only work 3 days every week.
Correct.
So,
you know, and I look at it, you know, so that question that's just come through, Greg, is, you know, if you've got a really good strategy in your business and good energy and passion, you know, because passionate employees grow your business, then, you know, you're soon going to find out if someone's not passionate or pulling their weight in your business, because other staff are going to tell you. And I think if you've lost a long-term staff member, there's a comment down there, do an exit interview with them and find out why they're leaving. And, you know, one of the things that I coach, and so does Alison and the rest of the team, is if you're going to dismiss a staff member or they're leaving, don't piss them off on the way out, right? Don't do that. Just, I know it's hard sometimes because our emotions get involved, but there's a process. And if it is emotional for you, then get someone else to do it so it doesn't cost you later down the track. So you also got to think about what's considered that is unfair. So that's like change of KPIs, unreasonable work expectation, doing longer hours, you're not following the award or EBA rules, you know, forced resignations over redundancy. We see that. You know, I've got, you know, I've done this, I pushed them into it, and then, you know, 12 months later, there's a claim that comes in. Like, where did that come from? So our employees are more and more educated about what their rights are within Fair Work, for sure. So again, you know, not enough time given to meet the expectations. So again, this is where the professional advice comes in. You know, and we see it, you know, putting staff undue stress.
Well, I had an example today. I had an employee at a client's, and they received a message from another colleague on a Saturday night after 10 p.m. So that would obviously be deemed unreasonable. due to the nature of that business, they only work Mondays to Fridays. So that's a good example.
Never send an email 11 o'clock at night in capital letters that you're angry, because
No.
then if you do that, then I hope you've got a good 20K to put aside to pay an allegation. Okay, so what's considered unlawful? So discrimination such as sex, gender, status, and Fair Work now, there's no, if I can say it, there's no excuses now. They don't care. If people are misbehaving in a business, then you're in big trouble if you can't try and control that. So make sure you got that, that right behaviours. And again, I go back to the strategy, keep the guys going in the direction you really want to take them in the business, and back it up with the HR process that supports it is the way to grow a business. But, that terminated because they refused to be a member or a group of a union, all these things that you can see here, we just got to make sure that you've got that right advice and you're doing your due diligence. We recommend a product called Enable HR. There's 65 HR products out there on the market. We're their platinum partner. I get a call every second week of someone wanting us to be their preferred supplier. Our team love this system.
Love.
It's great record keeping, the whole lot. If anyone wants a demonstration, just give us a buzz, book a free demonstration. We'll show you the system, but it will help you. I believe it will save you a lot of money, and it will help you with your record keeping, and it's professional and it's better for the onboarding process. So if you think about why do we document, so this is all about HR best practice. It shows that your professional organisation gives all the clarity of it and make sure addresses any concerns or misunderstanding. It's through systems, staff could have access to their employment records, which is they should be able to have access to their employment records. It'll minimise your risk. And if you get audited by Fair Work Commission, then you've got everything all in the one place. We know when there's a work cover claim that comes through for some of the clients, and it does happen. We can get in 3 seconds get the employees' records uploaded in 3 seconds of everything that's happened within that business. So again, that's why we encourage getting a HRIS system. And the big one for me is it's peace of mind, and it's managing staff is one of the hardest things you'll ever do in life. And if you get it right, it's a great feeling. So some of the things, the type of documents that you really just got to make sure that you've got your head around and using is that application form, your interview guides, staff information and onboarding documents, the PDs, clock contracts, your policies. So it's all standard stuff. And again, we call this HR best practice. This is what you get with HR best practice. It's professional and it takes your business to another level. Okay, so I'm going to go into topic 3 now, which is around some problems are more attitudinal, less difficult to define. Well, okay, you're right. So when we've got poor attitude, then, that's a one-on-one conversation. And again, going back to personalities, some people find it hard to address because the emotional side of someone's attitude. But sometimes you just got to come and have that conversation. Is everything okay?
Yeah.
Right. I can see that you're not 100% on song. Is there something wrong with the business? Is there something wrong with us? Right. And 9 times out of 10, what you will find is that, there's something that might be happening in their personal life and they just don't know how to open up and deal with it. So, yeah. Thank you for the session. I have to jump. Okay, no problems. Thanks. Go on you, Bobby. All right, so let's just talk about the last part before we finish up, and that is if you're leading and driving, if you're not leading and driving performance outcomes, who is? So in this slide here, you can see this is the employee life cycle of employee management. So again, that is about making sure that right from the job description, right through to succession planning, performance management happens all the way through this. So if you thinking about linking, and we've spoken about this in our 12 steps, linking performance to reviews, it's all about providing the feedback on their activities, setting that guidelines and expectations. It's professional. It's all about improvements. So one of the things we always talk about is, what training or development do you need? What courses can we put you on? What can we do to help you get to that next level? For training, I look at the 2 things, the outcomes, because training can be expensive, but staff outcomes is their self-satisfaction. They feel valued and empowered. They have purpose, more productive job satisfaction, more rewards. What's the outcome for the business? Well, you're skillful and talented employees. It'll increase your productivity, reduce waste of time, less mistakes and rework. So again, better customer output, and that big one we're all after, more profitability. So as I just finish up this webinar in the next couple of minutes, how do you do it? Well, number one is leadership. So you've got to train your managers. And if you're an owner, you need to know it yourself, how to lead your team, all right?
Not manage.
All right,
lead.
not manage. You got to lead, right? So, but a lot of people, they're a manager, but they've got to learn how to become a leader. And my saying is that, leaders do things right, managers do the right thing. So again, it is about finding that defined and making sure it happens. But have a strategy, update it, that should be refresh, not e-fresh. So we're going to a digital marketer here for your plan. Get some clarity and buy-in with the stakeholders, on what you want to do. And it's all about empowering others, working together. And one thing for me is just have great team meetings. If you, we're working with a company, they have a meeting once a quarter. That's not enough, right? You've got to have, good team meetings. The whole team's got to get together and just talk about, celebrating the wins, those milestone moments and that recognition and praise, and just recognize people. So it's been a big webinar. There's a lot jam-packed into it. But if we've got any questions, feel free to put that into the questions or the chat box. And while you're doing that, I just want to talk about some, I'm just going to flash this slide back again, which is the life cycle. So for those who asked, so for Greg, this is the performance management. So
Greg, you'll get this as a link as well.
Yeah, and this has come from the RE website, where it's come from, just for your information, Greg. So that is the lifestyle of an employee, going through that step-by-step process, which I think is really, really important. We're always about helping our clients out. So again, there's some free downloads. You can go to our website. You can learn more about change management. If you want to know about employer engagement surveys, there's some information there. You can download an example report. And if you want to do some strategic planning, then definitely we love doing that. And all the HR information is there as well. So our next webinar is around driving financial outcomes. So and we're going to get a special guest to come in and talk. I'm going to do a joint webinar with an accountant, and he's going to go through and talk about some of the things we need to do to keep driving that financial performance. Do we have any questions? Anyone else got any questions? Feel free. Don't be shy. We're out here. This is about who we are and what we do. And if you really loved our webinar today, then feel free to scan and give us a Google review, because we really value input. So I've got a thanks very much. Thanks, very informative. And I can say hello to a few people. So Anne, great to see you on the webinar. I popped in to saw the family in Wagga last week, which was really, really good. So please reach out, and thanks everyone for the webinar, and we hope you enjoyed it, and look forward to seeing you in the next one.
Bye everybody.
Thanks everyone.
Bye.
That concludes our webinar. Thank you.